About quarantines and other subjects, Congressman John Mica, Republican of Florida, also a member of the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, as well as a member of the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. John Mica, it's always great to have you here on America's Forum.
Well, thanks, JD, and good to be with you this morning.
You are one of the senior members of Congress now, with Darrell Issa having the gavel used to hold there at Government Reform and Oversight. Do you agree with his assessment on a lack of trust in the federal government and its handling of the Ebola crisis?
Absolutely, and Darrell and I conducted an oversight hearing last Friday, and I can tell you from that hearing, from a report we requested by the Inspector General to look at our preparedness capability, the federal government is not prepared. It's somewhat disorganized still, and we don't have answers to how we would keep the Americans safe at the federal level. That's why we've seen state leaders from both parties step up and say, yes, these people do need to be quarantined when they come into the United States.
And so the mandate for monitoring in Florida by Governor Rick Scott, I take it you agree with that step as well?
Absolutely. We don't want to deter anyone from going over and helping, but if they have been exposed, particularly healthcare workers, for 21 days, they need to be quarantined. We've seen with a doctor that just returned, we're very fortunate with him. He self-reported, but he went through the airport, he was tested, and the symptoms don't always appear even when they're tested at the airport. So those protocols are not working. We saw, again, the guidance that is supposedly sent out by the federal government to first responders. That's not working. We saw New York police officers taking their masks and gloves off and putting them into public trash cans. We got to make certain that, again, we protect the American people, and we're not talking about inconveniencing that many people.
Well, it's interesting to see the specter of politics involved in this. Reports that President Obama went to governors of the several states who had put some sort of mandate in place, asking them to ease off, and that is exactly what Governor Andrew Cuomo has done now in New York. Why would the president... Go ahead, sir.
This shouldn't be political. We need to put prudent steps in place. The president needs to be checking, even like we had the HHS assistant secretary in. We have a pandemic office under that individual. The inspector general said the respirators they have are expired. The equipment they don't have an inventory of. Even the hand sanitizers, 84% of what they tested had outused its useful life. So the federal government needs to get its act together. If states and other localities want to put these in place and the federal government doesn't, they need to protect themselves. So far, we've kept the genie in the bottle, but we need to be prepared.
Congressman John Mica, in the 3 minutes that remain to us, I want to talk about lone rat attacks. The Wall Street Journal has an article detailing how New York City's top terrorism or counterterrorism official visited your home state of Florida last week to warn a group of police chiefs about the growing threat of self-radicalized terrorists. In view of the message delivered at that meeting, how is your home state of Florida reacting?
Well, Florida, again, everyone has to take their own steps. Sometimes the federal government doesn't, but I think that is a clear danger. We saw in Canada just last week two of their military run over by a vehicle, one killed. We saw the attack on the parliament, the honor guard murdered. This is a call that's gone out to go after military, whether United States or some of our coalition partners, and take out military and public officials. So we need to also be prepared on this. Darrell Issa and I spent part of last week before our hearing in Washington in the Middle East, meeting with our partners there. I'd actually met with coalition partners and Canadian troops that are over there. now they're helping us. They're targeted, and the United States is certainly a target too.
And mindful of the United States being targeted, your colleague, Congressman Mike McCall, the current chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, says there needs to be a grassroots type of campaign to combat lone rats. Here's what Chairman McCall had to say yesterday on ABC's This Week.
Surveillance of mosques is a very sensitive issue, but what I would urge would be that we have greater community involvement within the mosques.
Community involvement with mosques around the country. Is that something that you could agree with Mike McCall on, John Mica?
That is one way, but we do know that many of these people have indicated that they want to join radical forces. In Canada, I think in both of those cases they had previous history, and I'm getting of the mind that these people want to go to the Mid East and help that cause. We ought to buy them a one-way ticket, get them out of here. But again, I think that we've got to be cautious at every level. A federal government can't do it all. So at each and every level, and citizens, we've got to be on the alert. But the federal government that knows those who pose risks are going to have to double their efforts too.
Congressman John Mica of Florida, as always, we appreciate your insights and analysis. And perhaps the news this morning, the takeaway is if people mean to do us harm, if they head out of the country, don't let them back in. A point worth noting. We sure appreciate it, John.
One-way tickets, JD.
We're one-way tickets, absolutely. We're out of time, Congressman Mica. As always, we thank you for it. Congressman John Mica, Republican of Florida, weighing in. America's Forum continues following this Newsmax Now update.